Preparedness is a lifelong goal. And now there's a lot of beginners to the channel. Great. I'm glad you're here. And let me just put it this way. Everybody's learning, and anybody who thinks they're mastering everything for preparedness is probably being a little deceived. So don't get stressed about thinking you need to know everything now. This video is catered to this. Work your way through, and try to eventually make goals.
And something like this might actually save your life.
Yep.
Now, this isn't your typical list we're talking about, guys. This is a list that you're going to work towards that is not disposable. It is something that you can keep for a long time.
Yeah, we're talking about skills, knowledge, and abilities to go long after a collapse. And that's the whole point. We're not looking at short-term things like stockpiling canned food this time. So here we go. The top 15 goals you need to have down before a complete collapse. Build a library. Now, again, in case of a complete collapse, you're going to want to have books. That's all there is to it. Lots
and lots of books. There's nothing better to have than a book, and you're not going to be able to rely on the internet.
Right, absolutely. In fact, complete collapse, there probably will not be internet anymore. We're not really showing you these books per se. These are 4 books. But we have dozens of books, dozens of them, that in fact, the very next video, which is coming out, we're going to be going through all our books. Because books are absolutely vital. I mean, like the first one I hear is Maple on Tap, and it's talking about how to maple syrup your tree. Sorry, tap, thank you. That's why I have a book. Tap your trees. And although we've been doing it for years now, the book always, you can glean more stuff from it. But, you know, she has like a big green self-reliant living book. This is the kind of stuff where, you know, even if you buy it now, store it away, and a complete collapse happens, oh, time to dig out that book, because this is going to be your how-to guide for everything. But we're talking about books on what, let's see, cooking, farming. Yeah, animals, medicine. Gardening. Yeah, lots of things like that. How-tos, construction, medical. You already said medical? I don't know. Oh, medical. So tons of stuff. But on top of that same note, besides simply just books on how to do things like this, you need to make your own books. Not simply books on how to maple, although those are good too, but every single thing you have saved that's important, papers like birth certificates, social security cards, all that type of stuff, you need to print out. Yeah. You need to actually have all that stuff put on paper and put away in a safe. Probably like one of those little concrete document storage safes would be best. Because again, if we're talking about an EMP, which, oh my gosh, that's an upcoming video in our nuclear series, absolutely can happen, and you will absolutely lose everything if that happens. And photos, guys. I'm along with books. Keep all that safe away. Yep. All right, so number 1, books. Now, for most of the items throughout this list of 15, I'm going to put links to Amazon, but I won't with the books. In fact, the next video again that comes out where we show the books, I'll put links to all these books on there. But we have lots and lots of books. A place to go. Now, it goes without being said, owning land should be your number 1 goal. I know this is number 2, but your number 1 goal as far as like doing things for yourself besides books, obviously, because land, not only land, but having land with a shelter on it, a house on it, a cabin or something, is like night and day difference. Yeah, and if you don't or can't afford one, or you think, find somebody who has one that will help you out in that area. Yeah, like friends and relatives. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is, I know like right now land prices are high, and they're only going higher, by the way, so it's still a great investment. I know there's a lot of people who comment and disagree with that, and that's fine. You can disagree if you like. But try to do something about getting some land. Yeah, it's important. And I know it's expensive to get land and such, but again, if you can't get it yourself, then friends or relatives. But I highly recommend you don't just intend on bugging out into the wilderness. Have you been to the wilderness before? And I'm not talking about in a camper or even a tent. That's because that's a camping trip for 2 weeks and drinking beer and catching fish and you're having fun. But we're talking about if crap hits the fan, living there forever. Yeah, having to wash what little clothes you have and eat mushrooms and berries. Yeah, and always be on defense and trying to make sure nobody comes in your camp and such. That's not a recommendation. I mean, I still recommend obviously having a tent. Even if you have a cabin in the middle of the woods, still have a tent, either for bugging out or if you don't have a lot of heat in that cabin of yours, the tent inside the cabin can work great. Not to mention like pillows and blankets and all those things and sleeping bags. I have to stress, if you have sleeping bags, make sure they're for your climate. Because up here where we're at, we're in Michigan, cold weather sleeping bags that go down to like -20 because you'll die literally of the cold if you don't have that type of sleeping bag. I actually had some just regular generic sleeping bags when we lived in Florida, and I'd camp outside and freeze with those. Well, when you live in Florida, you freeze if the temperature hits 70. But anyway, you definitely need the right tools to go to camp out, to be in a tent. But again, owning land is the absolute vital key. If you can possibly do that, or again, have friends or relatives that let you come into their place. Because again, I'm not going to say the more the merrier, but however, there is safety in numbers, and actually teaming up with somebody as far as growing food, and maybe you can start your own commune. That'd be fun. You could be hippies in the economic collapse. A power system. Now, these solar generators are the newest, latest, greatest things. And people even talk about having generators. But I will tell you right now, I don't care if it's these or a generator that requires gasoline. These will only last so long. Also, if you have a solar system for your home, which, that's a goal of ours, they do not last forever. Granted, you could probably get solar power for a good 30, 40 years off the panels, if not more. But the thing is, it's not like the electricity comes straight to your house and use it, although that happens sometimes. You have to want to store it in batteries, and batteries do not last forever. And guess what's inside these?
That's a battery.
They're batteries. Yeah, so I've mentioned these before, and same thing, I'll put links for these as well. Not for this one. This one isn't sold anymore, but these things are awesome, and I can only highly recommend getting something like this guy right here. Because let's say right now there's a complete EMP, power grid failure, collapse, and now the whole country is switched back to agrarian. We're all now in agriculture again. Having something like this that will last a few years for you means the difference in actually having some lights on at night, having a little bit of running water. You can put a little pump to it, whatever you need to.
Maybe a fan.
Right. But what I suggest is not only you get one of these, at the least, with a solar panel that goes with it, but furthermore, make sure you buy lots of like 12 volt items instead of the actual 110, 120 volt stuff. So if you're going to buy a new fan for your house, you may need a really big one, but can you get by with a small one that actually plugs like into a cigarette lighter, 12 volts? Because they actually consume far less power. We're not talking about voltage, but power than the big fans, and they actually accommodate off this much better than bigger items. Bigger items consume a lot more electricity. And I will tell you right now too, heat will never run off of your solar system per se. I shouldn't say never, but if you're actually looking at trying to run an air conditioner or some kind of electric baseboard heater off a solar system, forget it. So you're actually have to worry about that too. But we're talking about just general electricity. So could you omit this altogether? You could.
Yeah.
And if there's a complete collapse, then you will be fumbling through the dark as long as your batteries last on your flashlight. But at least with things like this, you will actually have electricity for a few years. And if you have a solar system for your house, it'll last a longer time. But I would recommend having some kind of electricity like that.
Yeah, if you can.
If you can.
A food source. Now, we're not talking about a stockpile of food like in the basement or under your bed like that. We're talking about things that you can find outside to grow.
Yeah, like canned foods and stuff. Obviously, you want to stock up on canned foods as much as possible. A few weeks, a couple years worth of canned food. But that canned food will eventually be gone.
Yes, so you have to learn things that like seeds and animals. It's very important to buy seeds, things that you guys would like to eat.
Yeah, so obviously, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
So I love seeds. I go seed crazy. It's the middle of winter, and I'm like, oh, I've got to plant seeds. And so we actually have all kinds of seeds from different types of vendors. Since we're in Michigan, this is actually important too. We actually buy a lot from another channel. You may know him, Luke from MI Gardener. He is awesome. And the reason we do that is because being in Michigan, he actually gets his seeds from other Michiganders, and it's actually seeds we know that will grow up north. Because we don't want to take some of those southern seeds. That sounds like a Civil War thing. We don't want some of those southern seeds up near Yankeeville. No, we don't want some of the seeds from down south because they may not grow as well
exactly.
as up here.
You're not going to be able to grow a banana tree up here because it's just not going to work.
I wish. That'd be awesome. Or not even just seeds, but trees too. Yeah. Start establishing an orchard as soon as you can. Yes. Because it'll take a few years before you really start getting stuff off it anyway. But I couldn't recommend highly plants, lots of seeds, really start learning the knack of gardening and implementing orchards and such. Yeah,
and animals too. Having chickens, having cows, goats, things like that give you milk and dairy products, and also you can eat. And
furthermore, are you ready for this? You got to feed them animals too.
That's true.
So you're going to have to make sure you're set up in a situation. Maybe you have a nice pasture land. You can put your cow out there. but you got to be able to feed them. And of course, there's that big cyclical symbiosis thing where your scraps can go to the chickens and they give you eggs and stuff. That's great. But you definitely need to make sure you account for feeding your animals as well. A cooking source.
Now, we're not talking about gas and propane. We're talking about things that are sustainable.
Yeah, and I'll say that again too, electricity also falls in that category. Let's say you have a really nice solar system. Your solar system is going to be having a hard time heating stuff up. The stuff that requires more heat requires more power, and solar systems really aren't meant for that. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it will stress it, and as over time, your solar panels will degrade over years, by the way, over decades, and you'll actually make it more and more difficult. So for us, we highly recommend you try to use anything that you possibly can to prepare food using wood. Mm-hmm. We're all about wood. Now, you may be thinking, oh, that's great, I have a wood stove. And that's true. But for the few months in the winter, you're going to love it. But the last thing you want to do is try to prepare things in your wood stove in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Some people have those really cool cooking stoves.
They do.
Those cooking wood stoves, which again, I wouldn't even think about doing that in summer. Even here in Michigan, would be frying. But you can get the kettles, which we have one of those too. But here's two things, and I'm actually going to make a standalone videos for these as well later on when we talk about as far as wood goes. Because outside, I actually have a wood smoker. I love smoking stuff with that. It uses nothing but wood. I have a wood pizza oven. Eventually, I want to make like a really nice rock one, but all that's completely using wood. Yeah. By the way, too, if you actually have like a propane grill, and the propane, by the way, I don't know if you know it, but if there's a collapse, they're going to stop delivering propane to your house. It's not coming anymore. You can actually easily take out the propane burners, and you can actually turn your propane grill into a wood grill and do it that way. It's not perfect for that because it's harder with the vents, but you can still do it. But here's a couple items for you. From inexpensive to expensive, this little guy right here, there's all kinds of them available on the internet. I think I paid $16 for this. I haven't even got to use it yet.
Yeah, it's foldable and comes in a little bag.
It flattens up. But what's nice is, huge pots and pans will fit up here, and you can feed it all kinds of little pieces of wood underneath, and be amazed how well these things work. But my buddy is this. This was not $16. These things are quite expensive. And again, I'll show you a video on how this works later. We'll light them up for you. But this is called a Biolite. You can see this baby has been well used. I've had this for years. I actually have a brand new one too.
Yeah, we do. We have a couple of them for our backpacks.
Yep. And but what's cool about it, and I won't turn it on, you can actually turn it on, and it turns into a rocket stove. So as you put wood in there, it actually helps keep the wood burning like a furnace. Will shoot out the top like a rocket engine. It's amazing. And then you put a pan, whatever you need to on here, and cook with it. But then what's cool is this light on here, when it's going, will turn green. Then you can actually plug in your phone or a light or whatever, and will charge up your batteries for you.
Yeah, and you can feed it pine cones. We've done that before too, and it actually does amazing.
Yeah, with pine cones, it's amazing. But one of my buddies bought me this attachment for it, which is a hot water kettle, and you'll have flames shooting out of here. It looks like a furnace.
It does.
This thing is awesome. But again, I'll put a link in the description below for this. But if you watch later on this summer, I'll actually have both of these out there to show you, and other stuff too, mind you. And my 9-year-old son saw me getting this out, and he's like, "Dad, we're getting out the Biolite?" He goes, "Can I help with that?" And they love it.
They do.
And I said, "Yes, this summer." He was like, "Yeah." So anyway, you need something to cook with. And forget about any type of gases or electricity to cook with. And if you want to try to cook outdoors all the time, that's up to you. But actually having some type of device, you can actually get these in little camping stoves too, by the way, is highly recommended that you have something like this. Again, I keep this in my backpack, and it all folds up nicely. And this one folds up too, but this actually is quite heavy compared to this.
It is.
But $16, you can't beat a little cooker like that for you. So you need a way to cook.
Starting fires. First off, you need to have a lot of lighters. I mean, a ton of lighters.
Yeah, those little cheapy disposable ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like just buying multi-packs of those whenever we go to Walmart. We just add up, and stock up on them. But here's the thing. This is actually for long-term after things disappear. The lighters are going to be your best friend, because what you need to do in the meantime is use your lighters to start fires. But practice other ways of starting a fire back in like your caveman days of like rubbing your two sticks together. Or as one of our friends said on our channel the other day, he goes, or find two Boy Scouts and rub them together. I love weird things like that. But anyways, you got to practice that stuff, because eventually disposable lighters, they're disposable. You're going to have those type of things disappearing eventually.
I think you should teach your children that too, if you have children, because there might be an opportunity and you're not there and they need to start a fire. And if they don't learn those skills, they could die. So it's
and
important.
We love that, and our kids love it too. We give our kids jobs and functions, and they will thrive in this type of environment. But yeah, we actually have checklists of all kinds of different tasks they're able to do. And fire starting is not like arsonist type stuff.
Yeah.
That's a whole different class. But starting campfires out in the backyard and such.
It's essential.
Yeah, it's essential, and they love it too. And they love for the fact that like when they get checked off, they know that I can tell them, like my 9-year-old David, we need a fire. He's like, yeah, and he knows exactly what to do to get it going. A water source.
Now you can buy those little water tablets, but eventually you're going to run out of that, and you're not going to be able to go to Walmart. So you're going to need something else.
They're not going to be around. Walmart's not going to be around anymore. How about Amazon?
Maybe, probably not.
Yeah, and so if you have some type of water filter system, that's great. I love the Katadyne. Love it. Yeah. This system right here. I'm proud of this little baby.
Yes.
This thing.
He does a lot of research on water filters.
This will filter out 13,000 gallons of water. And we're talking about the muddiest of nastiest waters. But I know a lot of people like the Sawyer, which is a good one. Life straws, I'm not saying they don't work. But, you know, you want to be able to fill up a jug and not constantly have to put your face in a puddle. But this will actually take mud and turn it into water for you. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah, the life straws are good to have in your backpack or your emergency pack, things like that. But if you're going to consume and possibly not have access to a lot of water, this would be something you would definitely want to have.
Yeah, we need a gallon a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention for cooking, and hopefully in the collapse there's going to be some showering too.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be helpful. But same thing, if you have like a Berkey, I know some people who have a Berkey and will buy tons of the extra filters for them, and that's fine. Someday you're still going to run out. I doubt if you're going to make it so you have enough for the rest of your lifetime. And so you need to find a way to be able to make your own water filter system. Yeah. And guess what? We're going to show you how to do that this summer. It's super, super easy. Simply just using ash from your wood stove or your fire pit, and some sand and some rocks, and you're good to go. So you can actually make your own Berkeys for far less expensive, by the way, you know, because Berkeys are not the cheapest critters in the world. This wasn't cheap either, mind you. But if you want water filters, again, I would recommend you have something like this or a Sawyer or something, so that way when there's a collapse, you actually have 13,000 gallons of clean water, and in the meantime, you can start building up your wood ash so you can start making your own water filters at that point. So it's always good to have this temporarily, like your canned food, until you learn to be able to provide your own food after that. So you got to have water.
Yep.
It's essential.
Build up repair supplies.
Yeah, so this is probably the one thing on here that's going to be difficult post-apocalypse, for the fact that repair supplies, things like duct tape, bungee, it's paracord,
scissors, I don't know,
rope,
lots of things,
tarps,
things
plastic rolls. Yeah, all those things are going to be essential, but all those things will eventually run out. So unless you actually live in a jungle that has vines where you can cut them down and tie things up with vines.
I don't think we live in
You'd be surprised.
No. I'm saying we don't live near that.
You can actually tie things with kudzu vines for people down south and such. That's pretty neat. But anyways, you need to stock up on those kind of things. And if you're looking at lifelong, you got to be able to learn to make do. So like if you're going to make a shelter, for a while use a tarp, but you can actually, there's ways to do it. It's actually pretty easy too, where you can use logs and leaves and stuff to actually make your own little huts and stuff. That's how it was done until modern houses eventually started popping up on our landscape. Build up clothing.
Clothing. We cannot express that enough, guys. Have clothing. Have lots of socks. Warm clothing if you live up north, or maybe down south if you have some for colder weather, because you're not going to be able to go to the stores and grab clothing, or you could possibly pass it down from somebody else. But if you have children too, I mean, maybe get a size up in a couple things so that they have extra clothing for that.
Yeah, and as far as clothes go, that's the same thing too. Is you're not gonna, well, some people can make it. I was going to say you can't, but some people can. They actually have a sheep and make wool clothes, which are itchy. But I'll tell you, as far as like living up north, you want the natural fibers like wool. It may be itchy, but it is the perfect thing to wear to keep yourself warm. And it actually, keeps the water off of you, which has a wicking thing. But one of the things I always stress too is stock up on your Carhartt knockoffs. Again, I definitely don't say go out and buy Carhartts. Forget about like even political stuff, but they're so expensive.
Yeah.
And I said that in a previous video, and a lot of people are like, oh, what brand do you use? This is my knockoff Carhartt jacket. It's a company called Blue Mountain. And I'll tell you, I've had this for years.
Almost 5 years now.
There isn't even like a shred of like damage to it. And we do everything in these clothes. My son too, from carrying wood and cutting down stuff and crawling on the ground and all those things you do when you live out in the country, crawl on the ground a lot, I suppose. But yeah, try to do a lot of knockoff, stock up on these. We actually live in an Amish area. You can actually get Amish clothes too, which basically are like these, the same material.
Yeah.
And they last forever. So really try to stock up on clothes, like she said.
Tools and hardware.
And just like she said, clothing, tools. And I want you to focus on having every possible tool you might need. From the general stuff, having general socket set, screwdriver sets, wrench sets, some
crowbar.
Crowbar set. Yeah, oh my gosh. Living out here in the country, we use crowbars and pry bars
for everything.
All the time. It's crazy. Hammers. It's really weird. Hammers and tape measures. I know I probably have 10 of each, and it could be because I have a lot of kids. They always disappear. I'm always like, guys, where's a hammer? And we can never find one.
They're always missing. And then we magically find them all around the same time. So
yeah, I attribute that to a teenager who loves borrowing tools. It's the same cliche and never puts them back. It's like, I have a drawer for that. That's where that tool goes. But we're not talking about just general tools. You want to have tools for cutting wood. Yeah. What else?
Saws, electric screwdrivers.
Repair tools.
Yeah.
Electrical tools.
Yeah.
Fence tools. Gardening tools.
Yes, that is a big one.
Rakes and shovels.
And don't buy the cheap ones, guys. We go through rakes like socks. It's ridiculous. I don't know how many rakes we go through there. Break down and pay the extra few dollars and buy a decent rake, because the $5 ones at Walmart do not last.
Yeah, we love buying. Well, I would say we actually love buying general tools from yard sales, because I find if you actually get inexpensive ones at Walmart, they're cheaper than yard sales sometimes. But we love picking up extras for those kind of things. And for us, if you actually have an electric of something, like an electric grinder for grinding wheat grains, we also have handheld ones, hand crank ones too, because we like to have everything back up. So if we ever lose everything, we can still cut wood. Yeah. We still have the big saws. We can clean our chimney. We have their chimney cleaning tools. We have our repair tools.
Yeah, have the backups.
Yeah, you need it for everything. So make sure you stock up on every conceivable tool you might ever need. If you don't ever need it, you can always trade it with someone, but definitely have lots of tools. Medical supplies.
Essential oils are great to have, and so are things like EpiPens and things like that.
Yeah, the emergency ones.
Yeah.
But, first aid kits, bandages and stuff, we try to buy that stuff in bulk. We don't have a first aid kit in the house. We literally have first aid tubs in the house, tubs full. I would say I used to be a doctor. I still am. I can't practice anymore. I got injured during the Gulf War, so the information doesn't come out so easy sometimes. But I still have all the medical supplies. I have everything. The only thing I don't have is we gave away our defibrillator paddles. Remember that? I was like, oh man, why'd we do that? We should have kept those.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you know it, 40% of all modern medicine comes from plants. I've actually heard in some stats it's even more than that. 40%. And the top 100, I could be wrong on that number, maybe the top 20, a lot of drugs all come from plants. Oh. So our plants make a lot. So knowing how to do herbs, alternatives for antibiotics, herbal medications and stuff is a huge thing. That's where we get them from in the first place. And again, the next video we're going to have is our books. And I'll show you some really good books that'll tell you which ones to use
for that.
For medicines, exactly. But make sure you have medications, medicines, bandages, and such too. And again, books that go along with that as well, as far as how to treat for medication.
Females and babies.
Yeah, I'm not a female nor a baby.
So this is my department. Let's see. If you have babies, reusable cloth wipes are great, and diapers are amazing. Also, if you're on your menstrual pads, you can buy them off of Amazon, and they're great to use. I like using cornstarch for like baby powder to have that extra. That's a good thing to have on hand.
Which, cornstarch, by the way, I'll have to look this one up, but obviously you can't buy cornstarch when crap's in the fan either. But I think you can actually just dry out corn and smash it up. Could be wrong.
I have no idea.
I think that's how cornstarch is made. When you get the book, you can look that up.
I have no idea, but it works amazing, and I haven't heard anything bad about it, but who knows now. Yeah,
but we use cloth for everything.
We do.
She has like a massive cloth diaper collection that she's very proud of.
I am.
And makes and sews her own cloth pads.
I do. They have you can go on Pinterest and find the ways to do it, and go to the craft store and buy everything, and really easy to make. So
you gonna make a video on that later?
I don't know. We'll see.
Soap.
Now you guys want to stock up on bar soap as much as you possibly can. Make sure you get the ones that you're not allergic to or your family can handle, because you don't want to have itchy skin during this, okay? So make sure you guys have the soap that you're able to use, but stock up on a lot of it because you can always trade that as well.
Right, and again, there we go. We want to go for long term because eventually you're not going to be able to buy bars of soap anymore. But that's perfect to have that bar soap stocked up, so then you can start making your own soap. Same thing, really easy, wood ash and animal fat. So I don't know if we make a video on that one. We might make a video on that one someday.
We'll see.
But you can do that. You can make your own soap. That's how it was done for the longest time. And you can keep yourself clean during the apocalypse.
Weapons.
Okay, before I say the G word, the gun word, I say it softly. Simply put, I don't show my guns on YouTube. Do I have guns? Yeah, I'm a big gun guy. I was a sharpshooter in the military. That was all part of what I had to do. But I would need you to understand that YouTube and a lot of modern America doesn't like guns nor the Second Amendment, and we're far for both of those. I've actually had people on previous videos say, this guy must be some kind of gun hater, not mentioning guns. Yeah, obviously we love guns, but we also like to have the videos going out so you can watch them, because YouTube will flag you for that kind of stuff. I thought about bringing guns out to show you, but I said, no, that's definitely not what I'm going to do, so we'll just talk about it. You need to have guns for prepping, mind you, not for other stuff, but for prepping for two major things. Number one, for hunting, and two, for protection. Exactly. Now, for me, for hunting, besides having a crossbow, actually having longbows, I have a 30-06. That's my gauge. If you don't have a gun, 30-06 is a great tried and true weapon. And I also have a 308. But I love my 30-06. It's just mine. It doesn't make one better over the other, although there are advantages for each one. So having some kind of hunting rifle. But if you're going to be hunting other things, you may actually need a shotgun, sometimes a small gauge shotgun for varmint hunting. And then a large gauge shotgun, like a 12 gauge Magnum, which I have as well, if you actually go deer hunting with that as well. For protection, I always recommend, if you're not a gun person, never been around guns, I always recommend you buy like a pump action shotgun. A pump action 12 gauge shotgun. That's what I recommend. They're inexpensive compared to other guns. You can actually sometimes still find shells for them, which, you know, most ammo is out right now. And what's great about shooting a shotgun is you can shoot it and your aim can be off a little bit and you'll still hit your target. May not be fatal, which could always be a good thing too. You don't always want to go killing people. But it's also bad because if your family's near there, you're not going to be accurate and you don't want to shoot your family. It's just one of those things you don't want to do. So a lot of people say get a handgun. I have handguns as well. But you have to be careful with handguns because you really need to know how to shoot that, clean it, and practice with it. And I can't tell you how many people I've met in my lifetime who have handguns. And I'll say, oh, what's it like shooting it? Oh, I've only shot it once or twice. Are you insane?
Practice.
You need to practice and practice weekly. You need to practice all the time. And it doesn't mean using ammo. You can actually get one of those little laser target things that's the size of a bullet and put it in there and practice.
Yeah, learn
you
safety.
have to practice. And the safety too. Oh my gosh, thank you for bringing that up. You have to have the safety as well so you don't accidentally kill someone. Accidentally killings is a huge thing. You know, and it's just people being absolutely stupid, never point your gun unless you want to shoot that person or animal, whatever. Never do that. But they do. They're clean. Oh, I was just cleaning it. Sure you were. Yeah, now you suddenly have an inheritance, don't you? You know, just people do stupid stuff like that. So anyway, we're big gun people. And obviously stocking up on ammo is a huge thing as well. But right now, good luck getting a lot of the ammo.
Yeah, it's sold out everywhere.
All right, so what do you do after the apocalypse? You're not going to buy any guns or ammo then. You might be able to get ammo on the black market, but even that's going to be super expensive. That's why I love my crossbow. Because I've got tons of bolts and we have tons of arrows and all of our family shoots with them. And you can even say, well, I reload. You're not going to get your reloading stuff anymore either. It's going to disappear as well. So you need to find a way to go back to old methods of killing animals for eating them. Traps, for example, and maybe using a crossbow or bows and arrows. I mean, bolts and arrows get broken and lost sometimes too, but it's far less than a bullet. Once you shoot a bullet, the bullet's gone. Exactly. Repacking the shell, sure, but then you still have to have all the stuff to make that happen as well. So anyways, weapons. And finally, a wood stove. Last, but certainly not least, in fact, we often say the best for last, a wood stove is huge to have in your house. And I'm not talking about physical size, obviously. You really should have one. And I've had a lot of people say, I live down south. Or they say, I live down south. They talk like, just plain. Anyway, But do you remember in Texas coming back, was that a couple of years
I
ago,
think it was last year.
where they had the serious problem where they didn't have power for a week? You still need heat down south. Granted, it's not for near as long. And if you actually just have a small wood stove for like a rec room or den, so you can, even just the ambiance of having it there is great. But you know, if crap hits the fan and for that couple weeks you want to stay warm, you can close off the rest of the house and stay right in that one room. But having a wood stove can be a little expensive putting in, but it's worth it. As soon as we bought this house a few years ago now, quite a few, first thing I put in a wood stove. And it was something I'd never done before. I figured it out. In fact, you can see older videos. I actually have how to put one in. But I can't recommend this enough, having a wood stove. And of course, if you have the wood stove,
Gotta have wood.
Gotta have lots of wood. Lots and lots of wood. So have the stuff to be able to cut the wood. Log splitters. We have a gas log splitter. We have an electric log splitter. In fact, my next thing I've tried to purchase, but they're out of them, are the hydraulic log splitters. You can go like this, so I can show it online. It's pretty neat. But you know what? They have this thing called axes.
And I wouldn't recommend, if you're going to get a wood stove, I honestly wouldn't get wood pellet stove, because when stuff hits the fan, you're not going to have any pellets, and then it's not going to work.
Right.
So,
The pellet stove is pretty much the same thing as you're going to actually have like a furnace in your house. It may be cheaper, but they're not going to be making pellets. It's a specialized process. And if you have a fireplace too, let me say this. Having a fireplace works well as well, but no matter what people tell you, a fireplace will not keep your house as warm as a wood stove. Unless you get a fireplace insert, because it'll actually make the wood last longer and it actually will blow it better into your house. And that works well too, but I still would actually, if I had to choose, I would pick a wood stove any day over an insert. So anyway, there's your 15 items, 15 goals that you should be shooting for before a complete collapse. And again, if you don't have any of these, don't stress about it. Just start
working towards
taking that trip.
Yep.
You know, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Start working toward it. Now, what would you add to the list? What would you change? How well are you doing on your list? Is there anybody out there who has everything? Is there anybody out there who has nothing?
Yeah.
You know, because this really is a lifelong endeavor to try to get all these things so you can eventually be completely sustained for, I'm not going to say if the day comes when crap hits the fan. I personally believe when the day comes. Because if you look at history, all civilizations have failed and collapsed. And I don't see any reason why someday ours will as well. And it's scary. You know, we have a lot of scary times right now, but we don't want to live in fear. We want to prepare so we don't have to live in fear.
Exactly.
And therefore, these 15 goals are hopefully going to help you quite a bit. All right. Thanks so much for watching. And of course, we have lots of other prep videos as well. Watch for the next video that's going to be coming out where we talk about all the books, which is going to be fun. And in the meantime, check out this video right here.